Trials of Mana review update. So this is a new type of video for me. So Trials of Mana was the first game I ever reviewed. It was the first video I ever did for this channel. So it's a little poetic that it's also the first review update I do as well, because obviously, as a lot of you know, a lot of games post-launch can end up being very different down the road from when they were first released. Very, very different. And Trials of Mana got quite a few quality of life improvements and some new difficulty modes added. And it was very much a game I planned on going through again, because I only went through it once with 3 of the 6 playable characters, and I had every intention of going through it a second time with the other 3. And lo and behold, I got to, but with some much needed additions to the game. So let's get to it. My first ever review update. The biggest draw for me with this new update is the new difficulty modes added. Because when I went through this game the first time and I played it on hard, it was ridiculously easy. Generally, the Mana games weren't particularly difficult, but holy crap, this game was such a breeze. Still enjoyed it, but way too easy. But with this new update, they added the Expert and no future difficulties. And with no future, the hardest mode, they very much had a disclaimer saying you needed your most powerful party members with pretty much all of their best equipment and so on and so forth. And since I needed to go through this game a second time with 3 brand new characters who don't have any equipment or been leveled up at all, I figured I'll try it on Expert. And by and large, it was a vast improvement. Even on Expert mode, initially, I'd say for about roughly half of the game, the challenge is still a bit on the easy side. It's better, but it's still a bit easy. But once you get to about the halfway point, the difficulty really starts to amp up, particularly when it comes to boss fights. Generally, the regular enemy encounters in Mana games aren't incredibly difficult and they're over pretty quickly, and that's par for the course. But the boss battles were much improved, and that's really what needed a lot more attention. I was having to be conscious of things in boss fights that never even crossed my mind to worry about in the other difficulty modes. I had to be conscious of enemy weaknesses. I had to be conscious of where my party members were placed on the battlefield. Because if you tell your party members to activate a certain ability, they will stop in their tracks and start casting or just do the ability you want them to. And now that is particularly dangerous, because if they get caught in a telegraphed attack, they can be killed outright instantaneously. So you have to be very careful when issuing orders to party members now, and you have to be very conscious of what's going on and what the boss might do next. So you have to be very careful of telegraphed attacks now. You have to be very careful of attack rotation when it comes to what a boss could possibly do. You need to make sure your characters are buffed. You need to make sure the enemies are debuffed if possible. You need to have a dedicated healer now. And now you have to be very conscious of what commands you give to your companion's AI. You'll have different settings, whether you want them to be on the attack, whether you want them to be on the defense and heal your party. That's something you really need to worry about now. And it's something you didn't really need to worry about too much on the other difficulty modes, because you're gonna need your companion characters to act in very specific ways. And you're gonna wanna adjust things such as how many items they can use, or whether they can use their special attack abilities, because now you're gonna have to consciously think, ooh, I don't want them using their special attack, because there's going to be moments in this boss fight where I'm going to need them in order to do a certain mechanic. So you are going to be strategizing on levels that wouldn't have even occurred to you before. So that is awesome. So there's a whole new world of strategy now when it comes to the boss battles, and it makes them way more enjoyable. You even have to be conscious of invincibility windows. So when you activate a special attack or a summon, for example, your character will be invincible for a few seconds, and any attack that happens will just bypass them completely and not hurt them. That's actually important now. That's stuff you never even really had to think about at all before. And even now in battle, on Expert mode, for example, you can only have 9 of any given item at a time, even if you own 99 of them. You have to be careful using your items now, because you can't just use your items that revive people willy-nilly. You need to pick very specific instances when you use them at times now, because you can't just afford to keep reviving someone over and over again if they're trapped in a corner. And Expert mode was made a bit more difficult because I was going in with 3 brand new characters. And I reached a certain point where even though I was over leveled, I couldn't allocate skill points because I had to wait to a very specific part of the story to get the level 4 class change. And because of that, some of these boss battles were a real uphill fight. And I was wiping multiple times, and I was having to get their attack patterns and everything down pat before I had even a chance of beating some of them. Boss battles that were over in a flash are easily 5-10 times longer now, just because bosses have way more HP and you're dealing less damage to them as well. So even though I have only done the expert difficulty mode at this point, and I'm going to do a no future run for a future update, I can say the game is much improved because the difficulty was one of my most vocal complaints about Trials of Mana, and it was much more difficult. I was wiping multiple times, and I was actually having a bit of a challenge with this game, and it made it more enjoyable. Absolutely. And if you don't want that kind of challenge, you don't have to. But it was something I was really missing and something I was really hoping that would be added. And lo and behold, it was. And there were even other little additions. There's more save points in the game now because you just can't save wherever you want. And you can now freely change your costume as well if you've changed into that particular job class before, which is a nice little addition. Because everyone's going to have their favorites when it comes to certain job looks. Now you can have them no matter which job you pick. So I think that's a great addition too. So all in all, one of my biggest complaints was fixed with this update. And even though Trials of Mana is very much a budget remake as far as Square Enix is concerned, it was still a good time, and this update definitely made it a better game overall. And for the difficulty mode I went through, I found it quite well balanced. I didn't find it particularly unfair. It was unfair in the fact that I guess they were assuming that I would maybe be able to change my class a bit earlier and that I had maybe gone through the game with these 3 characters I'd used, but I hadn't. But I kind of liked the uphill fight as well. So I will give another update in the future after I do a no future run, and I'll give my thoughts on that and see how balanced that difficulty mode is, because they make it sound like it's tough as nails, and I'm almost a little bit worried to take it on, but we'll see. But anyway, thank you for joining me for this Trials of Mana review update. I'll see you next time.